Hi, good afternoon. You've just caught me. I'm listening to music. Can you hear? Maybe I'll turn it up so you can hear. It's singing and a piano, and that's it. This is an old spiritual called Deep River, and it's sung by an incredible singer. But I don't want to tell you too much about it because you see, it does relate to our story today. Yeah, we're going to read a really incredible story, and let me give you a little sneak peek. Oh, well, I don't want to tell you too much about it quite yet. I'd like to pause my music and get ready for story time. I just turn it down here. Oh, that feels better. Hi, and now I can say hello to you. How are you today? I hope that you've had a really nice week. Some things are changing around us, and I'm really glad that every Friday we get to come here and be together. My name is Krista, and you can call me Cece, or you can call me Chrissy, or you can call me Krista, or whatever works for you. And this is my dog here, Cookie. You see Cookie? She's sleeping. She always takes naps during this time. This must be her nap time, and we'll read her a story. Well, we're really reading for you. So I just like to say hello and welcome. Welcome to my house. This is where I live. Yeah. Before we read our story, I want to get ready to sit and pay attention to you. So I'm going to take a breath in, and when I do, I'm going to take my shoulders up to my ears. Would you like to try that? I don't really mean like take them apart and lift them up. That would be so silly, but I'm going to breathe and I'm going to lift them up and hold them tight. Ready? Ready? Take a breath in and then drop them. That feels really nice. I'm going to do that again. Take a breath in and then out. That feels very good. And I'm going to just turn a little side to side, stretch my arms out to the side and turn them up and down and grab them behind my back. Can you do that? Folding your hands behind your back and then straightening my arms a little bit. Left and right. Now I feel ready to hold a book today. Yeah. Well, I hope you're ready because this story is a piece of nonfiction literature. Nonfiction literature. Do you know what that means? It just means it's a real story. This is a real story, and it's called When Marian Sang. And it's written by Pam Munoz Ryan, and the pictures are done by Brian Selznick. You might know the illustrator Brian Selznick because he has done The Stinky Cheese Man. That's a really interesting story, and the illustrations are so beautiful there and so funny. And the illustrations here, this is one of my very, very favorite books. When I used to be a teacher, I used to teach second grade, I used to read this story, and it's a long one in that there's a lot of different twists and turns through the story to get to the end, which is a really triumphant story. So I hope you'll stick around. And even if you need to pause, you can always come back to the story and revisit it with us. Yeah. So this story, it's a hardcover book, right? And it has this fancy thing on top. Whoa. Do you remember what this is called? The dust jacket. It's the jacket that the book gets to wear when it lives on my bookshelf to help protect it from dust. And it just makes it a little bit easier if I can store it off to the side so I can hold this for you. Well, this story was set a long time ago, but not too long ago. In fact, I think some of your grandparents or your great-grandparents, more likely, were alive when this story was unfolding, when Marian's story in her life was unfolding. And I think that there's a lot of things that are happening now that make me think of this story and think of Marian's life. I also love it because there's a lot of music in this story, and I know that music is very powerful. Everybody can play or sing, even if you're not so good at music, like Marian. Marian's really great at music. She's really great at singing. everybody can take joy in music. And that's really what the story is about too. So let's get ready. Whoa, it's a very big book. My friend Shenandoah bought this book for us. And you say, thanks, Shenandoah. So nice of her. And look how it opens. Did you see that transition there? Let me do it again. I see on this page, looks like a theater. And then when I turn it here, what do you see in the theater? I see what looks like New York City, brick buildings and apartments. And then in this window, I see a little girl. And there's light around her, which makes me think this might be either a play or a dream. I don't know, let's see. There's the title page, When Marian Sang. This says, the true recital of Marian Anderson, the voice of a century. That was just the song I was listening to. The woman I was listening to is Marian singing in preparation for this story. And here we go. Can you see that? The pages are a little bit glossy, and I'm wondering if I just turn my light a little bit, you could see a little bit easier. Yeah. No one was surprised that Marian loved to sing. After all, she listened to her father singing in the morning as he dressed, and Mother often hummed as well while she worked in the kitchen. Sometimes Marian and her little sisters, Ethel May and Elise, sang songs all afternoon. Do you like to sing? They used to sing, let us break bread together. Let us on our knees, and let us break bread together on our knees. And when I fall on my knees with my face to the rising sun, oh Lord, have mercy on me. And so they would sing songs that were called spirituals, religious songs together, and they would all sing. However, her voice, Marian's voice, was distinct. It was strong, velvety, and able to climb more than 24 notes, which is a lot. Everyone wanted to hear Marian sing. When she was just little, she was very gifted already. Look at that. There she is. Alexander Robinson, the choir director at the Union Baptist Church in South Philadelphia, he wanted to hear Marian sing even though she was not quite 8 years old. And sometimes she sang too loud. Well, he asked her to perform a duet with her friend Viola Johnson. And as Viola sang the high part and Marian sang the low, their harmony blended like a silk braid. That's interesting, like a silk braid. You have multiple parts of a braid, pieces of hair, and you pull them together and it comes together. That's what their voices were like. Beautiful silk braid. They sang, dear to the heart of the shepherd, dear are the sheep of his fold. Dear is the love that he gives them, dearer than silver and or gold. And church folks started whispering and followed with out and out talking about Marian's remarkable gift. Neighboring churches heard the news and invited Marian to perform. And one advertisement said, come and hear the baby contralto, 10 years old. And people came. Wow, it's kind of a lot of pressure on a young child. I think, what if you had a gift like that and suddenly everyone around town was saying, come and listen to this child? That's a pretty remarkable thing. I wonder if I would feel nervous. I wonder if Marian felt nervous. So look at that. Do you know what all these people standing there are doing? Let's see if we can figure it out from the story. It says, when Marian sang, it was often with her eyes closed, as if finding the music within. Audiences heard not only the words, but the feelings too. Spirited worship, tender affection, and nothing short of joy. See, she was chosen for the celebrated people's chorus, 100 voices from the all-black church choirs in Philadelphia. She was one of the youngest members. Wow. And she had to stand on a chair so that those in the back could see the pride of South Philadelphia. Oh, so this is a chorus. She was one of the youngest people. She had to stand on a chair to be seen. Wow. But her father was proud too. But he was protective. He didn't want anyone taking advantage of his child. Father's love made Marian feel very important. And when he died after an injury at the Reading Terminal where he sold ice, tragedy filled Marian's heart and sometimes her songs. And so she would sing songs that would help her. And the songs would go, "Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Oh, oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble. And were you there when they laid him in the tomb?" So these are the songs she would sing to help her get through. Look at this very large picture. So I'll show you this side first and then we can scroll through. Does that sound nice? I'll move it. It says, "Mother was happy for Marian's success, but reminded her that no matter what she studied, no matter what, that she take time to study a little extra and do it well." Marian didn't need extra encouragement when it came to singing. See, she practiced her part of each song and often learned all the other parts too. Wow. And more than anything, she thought music was a serious business and she hoped to go to music school. Church members promised tuition for our Marian if she was accepted. Tuition is the fee that you pay for school. And so she wanted to go to music school. And the people in her church, what did they do? Do you remember? They promised to help pay if she got in. So since her father's death, Marian worked at odd jobs and sang in concert programs in order to help support her family. But it wasn't until 1915, when Marian was 18 years old, that she finally went to music school and patiently waited in line for an application. But the girl behind the counter helped everyone except for Marian. Was she invisible? And finally the girl said, and it's not nice, as you can imagine, she said, "We don't take colored," which was a word that people used to use to describe people like Marian, people who have darker skin. Now we call them Black people, or we call them people of color, or we call them Black Indigenous people of color. This school in 1915 said, "We don't take you." Her voice sounded like a steel door closing, slamming in her face. I mean, this was Marian's dream, and for some reason the school said no, all because of the color of her skin. Yeah. And so I can see in this picture, who do you think that is holding Marian's face? I think it's her mom. I'll read to you. It says, let me go to this side so I can hold it a little bit better and you can see. Marian knew about prejudice. She had even seen the trolley car drive past her family as they stood at the corner. She knew about racism, and she knew that her people were always the last to be helped in a store. But she could not understand how anyone who was surrounded by the spirit and beauty of music could be so narrow-minded. She felt sick in her stomach and in her heart. Just didn't they know that her skin was different, but her feelings were the same? Couldn't she be a professional singer if she was a Negro? With unwavering faith, Mother told her that there would be another way to accomplish what would have been done at that school. Wonder what the idea is. Marian believed her mother, so she took voice lessons in her own neighborhood and continued with the choirs and sometimes performed at Negro churches and colleges. So back in the time when Marian was growing up, everything was really separated just because of the color of her skin. I think some of you probably know that. And even now today, there are still a lot of churches and places that, and schools even, that even though it's allowed for people with different skin colors to come in and be together, we can be friends with whoever we want to be, there are still systems in place that make it where it seems to be only one skin color goes to one church or one school or one area. And that was happening back then when Marian was coming up in the world and little, but it was the law then. So it was a different situation. You see here, look at this beautiful scene. When Marian saw a Metropolitan Opera performance of the tragic opera Madame Butterfly, thoughts of a formal music education came again to mind. She thought how wonderful it would be to sing on a grand stage, act out a dramatic role, and wear beautiful costumes. The passionate music inspired her, and she was determined to study. But opera was simply the sun and the moon, a dream that seemed just too far away. And then so she would sing this song. She would sing, "He's got the wind and the rain in his hands. He's got the sun and the moon right in his hands. He's got the wind and the rain in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. She would sing to comfort herself. She really wanted this dream. And so here we are. You see here out this sign? It says colored waiting room. And that's, like I said in the beginning of the book, that when the lady turned her away from the school, that was a phrase that was used, and we no longer use that phrase about a people group with darker skin. But this is what it was like in her time. And this was an area only for people with darker skin, specifically for Black people over here. And so this is showing here that she's waiting, and it says, as a young woman, now we're moving forward a little bit, in her 20s, Marian was invited to many stages, many states in the United States to sing. Sometimes she traveled with her accompanist by train, where they were seated in the dirty and crowded Jim Crow car, which was reserved for Negroes. When she arrived at her destination, she often sang the same program twice, which was to separate the audience. One audience was white and one was Black, or to segregated groups, whites in the best seats and Blacks in the balcony. Many times she was welcomed enthusiastically by her audiences and then could not get a hotel room simply because she was not white. So she could perform at all these places, but she couldn't even find a place to sleep. And that feels really wrong to me. And it is wrong, and it was wrong. No matter what humiliations she endured, Marian sang her heart with dignity, and her voice left audiences weeping or in hushed awe as they strained to hold on to the memory and every opulent note. She would sing so many songs. So you see how things were really different for her and really separate, and she would have these opportunities to sing, but she would have nowhere to sleep. That's pretty insane to me. So here she is. I wonder what's happening in this photo. Marian still wanted to advance her singing with her master teachers. With the help of friends, she was granted an audition with the fierce yet famous Giuseppe Boghetti. And when she arrived at his studio, Mr. Boghetti announced that he didn't have time or room for new students. Too afraid to even look at him, Marian took a deep breath and slowly, with great emotion, she started to sing. Deep river, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. That's just the song I was just playing at the start of reading this book. She sang that for him. Let's see. Marian finally lifted her eyes open. I will make room for you right away, Mr. Boghetti said firmly, and I will need only 2 years with you. And after that, you will be able to go anywhere and sing for anybody. So again, Marian's devoted church community raised the money for her lessons. That's incredible. He saw what a talent she was. This is amazing. So here she is. Look at this. Look at this huge boat. Marian worked hard with Mr. Boghetti, and sometimes, for practice, she sang scenes from Italian operas with him. Her recitals now included German songs too, and also other languages actually troubled her. They were difficult. She didn't want to sing beautiful words like, well, it's a German phrase that I can't really say. I should have practiced that or maybe learned it, but she didn't want to just say these beautiful words. She wanted to know what the words meant. And what those words meant was dark, how dark in the woods and the fields. Other Negro singers had gone overseas to develop their voices and learn foreign languages. So why not her? I mean, after all, Europe was different. See, at that time, Europe didn't have the laws that we had in the United States of keeping people separated just because of the color on their skin. So Marian needed to grow, and her mother agreed. A bundle of trepidation and excitement, Marian boarded this ship. It's called the Ile de France, and in October in 1927, she had never been so far from her family, and she knew her sisters would take good care of mother, but she still already felt twinges of homesickness. You see, it's not that she could just hop on a plane and be gone in 8 hours and over into France. No, a ship took many, many, many days. often a couple of weeks. And it was really a sacrifice for her to go, but she's so passionate about her music. And here's a song she would sing to herself on the water. Well, I think it's on the water, just by looking at what Brian Cessna, he drew here. And it looks like water to me. It says, sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long ways from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone, a long ways from home, a long ways from home. You know when you're sad sometimes or you're lonely? It's okay to feel that. And I think that's what Marian was really feeling, that sorrow that she had to go so far from home just to further her passion, which was singing, and her gift. So look at this. Wow. Can you see this? Look at that. She looks like an angel with light surrounding her. I'll read you this page first and then we'll go over. Yeah. Marian studied and was eventually invited to perform in concert halls in Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark. The enthusiasm for her singing was so overwhelming that one newspaper in Sweden called it Marian fever. Yeah, it's sweeping the whole nation, Marian fever. Audiences clapped in London, they cheered in Paris, and pounded on the stage for encores in Russia. In Austria, the world-famous conductor, Arturo Toscanini, announced that what he had heard, one was privileged to hear only once in 100 years. Which is basically saying she had a voice unlike any other people on this earth, or any other people to come for the next 100 years. She was really incredible. Marian felt as if she had finally achieved some success. She even asked Mother if there was anything she wanted that would make her happy, because now Marian could afford to buy it for her. She was making some money off of this great gift. Mother said that all she wanted was for God to hold Marian in the highest of his hands, and it seemed like she was already there. Mr. Bogetti had been right. She could go anywhere and sing for anyone until she came home to the United States. In 1939, Howard University in Washington, D.C. booked a concert with Marian Anderson and began looking for an auditorium big enough to hold the audiences she attracted, because she's a superstar at this point in her life. And they decided that the 4,000-seat Constitution Hall would be perfect. But the manager of the hall said it wasn't available and no other dates would ever be available or offered because they had a policy that they would only take white performers only. Marian's agent, Sol Herox, wrote to the hall manager pointing out that Marian Anderson was one of the greatest living singers of our time, but it did no good. So he couldn't convince them. And because of prejudice and racism, that's the belief really that you're going to treat them differently because of the skin color that they have. That's a prejudice. The racism that existed was all of these systems and policies that were set up to keep her out of this stage, even though she's probably the best singer that ever existed in that time. It was not right. So enraged fans, they were very angry fans, wrote letters to the newspaper, and in protest, Eleanor Roosevelt, the First Lady of the United States, resigned from the organization that sponsored Constitution Hall. Howard University then tried to reserve a large high school auditorium from an all-white school, but again, they were denied. Now teachers were angry and marched in support of Marian in front of the Board of Education. Washington, D.C. was a boiling pot about to spill over. So there were people who were really angry and really upset because this was an injustice. It was unequal treatment and it was unfair to Marian. And so people did then what a lot of people are doing now, which is they protested, they marched around, they carried signs, they wrote letters, and they used their power in society to say, in their voice, enough is enough, this is not right. So let's see what happens. They thought, wasn't there someplace in her own country, in the capital, where Marian Anderson's voice could be heard? Committees formed and held meetings, and finally, with President Roosevelt's approval, the Department of the Interior of the United States government invited Marian to sing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial on Easter Sunday. Her country was offering her a momentous invitation, but she had concerns. She was worried. Would people protest? Like, would other people protest who weren't on her side and come back and say some awful things? And she was wondering, was it dangerous for her to be there? Because people simply hated Marian because of the color of her skin. So she's worried about these things, and she's worried, would anyone in my home country even come to see me? Examining her heart, Marian realized that although she was a singer first and foremost, she also had become a symbol to her people, and she wanted to make it easier for those who would follow her. So she had to be brave, and she said yes. So standing in the shadow of the statue of Lincoln, waiting to be called out, she read these engraved words, and these are words you can read on the statue that's at the Lincoln Memorial if you ever get to go to Washington, D.C. It says, "This nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom." So Marian looked out on a river of over 75,000 people. Her heart beat wildly. Would she be able to utter one note? She was so nervous. She took a deep breath and felt the power of her audience's goodwill surge towards her. Marian's sisters were there, and her mother too. And Marian stood straight, and she stood tall, and then she closed her eyes and sang, "My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, let freedom ring." And you can watch her singing actually on the internet. There's a video of this very thing. It's very cool. A roaring cheer followed every song. At the end of the program, the people then pled. They pleaded her, "Please, please sing more." When she began her thought-provoking encore, she sang, "Oh, nobody knows the trouble I see. Nobody knows my sorrow." Seems like words she really feels. Silence settled on the multitudes. I think they got really quiet to hear her. And this is a picture of the quiet. Do you want to see? See people here sitting together. Yeah. And then look up here at the top. Way there in the middle. That's Marian. Yeah. A lot of people, a sea, a river of people. For almost 16 years after the Lincoln Memorial performance, Marian sang for kings and queens and presidents and prime ministers, famous composers and conductors. She received medals and awards and honorary degrees for her magnificent voice, but there was still one place Marian had not sung. When she was finally invited, a dream came true. Do you maybe think about where that could be in the beginning of the story, the very, very beginning? Let's see. Marian wondered how many people would react. No Negro singer, which means just someone, this is a phrase that was used back then, of someone with a darker skin color, would ever come, and they'd ever done that, such a thing before, singing in this hall. She would be the first person, but she didn't need to worry. After she signed the contract, someone said, "Welcome home." On opening night, excitement charged the air, and as Marian waited, she waited in the wings, the orchestra began. Her stomach fluttered. She walked onto the grand stage, and trembling, she straightened her costume and waited for the pounding music she knew to be her cue. Tonight was her debut with the Metropolitan Opera, and at long last she had reached the sun and the moon. The curtains parted. And Marian sang. You recognize this from the beginning of the story? It took a long time to get there. It was really a struggle in so many ways. Not only did she have to work hard to be a fantastic singer, she also faced a lot of rules, policies, laws, and setbacks that prohibited her from really coming into the fullness of her dream and really the thing that she had every right to do, which was sing and use her talents. In many ways, I think, wow, things have really changed. Now we can have anybody sing anywhere, and anybody can ride in any plane, in any part of a train, or any type of bus. We can all be together. But then I still think about some of the things that look really similar now in our country, and maybe the ways that things are not always equal, or the opportunities are not always equal. Even if people don't say out loud why they're unequal. And I think now when I'm watching the news and I'm out in the street and I'm seeing people protest and I'm walking out with my friends and calling for things that are just not right, unequal treatment in our country right now, I think of the story and I think of Marian and I think about how far she had to come and how hard she had to work to bring us to where we are now. There's a lot of people who've worked very hard over the years to bring a lot of unity and harmony, and there's still a lot of work to be done. So I hope you really like this story, learning about Marian Anderson. You can go on the internet with your grown-up and you can search her name, you can type it in, and you can watch her sing at the Lincoln Memorial. You can go on to any place where they have music and you can download it or buy a CD of her singing. It's kind of amazing to hear her voice. And it's not like a voice we hear now. It's a very strong voice with a lot of vibration. I think if you hear it and you listen, you'll think it's a voice unlike so many other voices we have today. She was incredible. Well, I told you that would be a long story, and I see you've really made it, so I'm very proud of you. I want you today, before we go, we always close and I always say thank you, and we think with gratitude. And we think about people who've helped us. But today, I want you to think about if there's someone or some people in your life who maybe aren't being treated the same as other people or being treated fairly like you think they should be treated. I want you to think about a way that you could help. And trust me, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be big. It can just be something small to use your voice like she used her voice. Remember, she was brave. She thought maybe she could be hurt or harmed by going to sing at the memorial, but she knew it was the right thing to do. So, I would like to say goodbye to you now. And what that means is I will see you next week. So think about those people. Say goodbye to Cookie. She's fast asleep. And I'll see you next week. I'm going to reach out to you like this, and I'm going to go like this and give you a big hug. And you can do that too if you want to feel like a big hug. If you haven't got a hug today, I'm going to give you a hug. Ready? Reach your arms out, make them cross over, and touch your shoulders. And then take a big hug and just squeeze side to side. So nice to be with you today. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye for now.